seeks to win the 2008 Democratic nomination for the presidency, his campaign has taken on increasingly utopian tones. For example, posted on the April 1st, 2008 Guardian is a column titled "Obama is the Change That America Has Tried to Hide," arguing that only one candidate offers the radical departure from the normal that the 21st century U.S. needs for its own sake as well as the rest of the world. In the piece, the reader finds accolades and platitudes as revolutionarily disturbing as anything from the time of the Bolshevik uprising and the Red Menace in terms of the new order this man's disciples hope to impose upon society. For example, the piece speaks of a new country existing alongside the old. Few commentators will possess the fortitude to translate this phrase honestly, but what that means is essentially that the Holy Barak should have the presidency bestowed upon him for no other reason than that he happens to be half black. The sentiment also implies that those daring to vote against him had better watch out when the riots start, either after his victory or defeat. Those thinking I'm reading too much into this need only continue on in the Guardian column as the anti-white animus becomes even more apparent. This subversive writes, quote, "I can easily imagine Obama sitting down and talking to any leader in the world with no baggage of past servitude or race supremacy to mar their talks. I cannot see the same scenario with Clinton, who would drag into the 21st century U.S. leadership the same image of white privilege and distance from others' lives that has so marred the country's contact with the rest of the world," end quote. In other words, no whites need apply when it comes to elected office. Fair enough. Maybe we can kick back now and someone can pay for our food stamps and welfare for a while and get an entire month dedicated to us where we are applauded for a change for no other reason than that we happen to be white. Whites having grown docile in light of pandering to agitating minorities out of a fear of being classified as racist or whatever other labels are invoked these days to keep the handouts flowing, will no doubt exhibit the hesitancy to stand up for themselves that has come to categorize most of this ethnic extraction for the last 25 years or so. Let's hope this character flaw corrects itself before the followers of Obama set out to impose their socialist utopia, where they plan to take what you, ladies and gentlemen, have worked for and distribute it to deadbeats of all colors that haven't lifted a finger. Think I'm over-exaggerating? One only needs to continue analyzing this Guardian piece in question to see just how anti-American the Obamaites really are. Alice Walker writes, quote, "I want a grown-up attitude towards Cuba, for instance, a country and people I love. I want an end to the war immediately. I want the soldiers to be encouraged to destroy their weapons and drive themselves out of Iraq." Edmund Burke is credited with saying that in order to love my country must be lovely. One might be able to love the broad masses of the Cuban people as victims of Castro's regime, but to say that one loves Cuba as it is currently constituted means first and foremost that one is a communist at heart. Secondly, it is one thing to believe that prolonged involvement in Iraq may not be in the best strategic interests of the United States. However, one is advocating something far more subversive entirely when one calls for the abolition of the armed forces altogether. It may not just be the military the devotees of the sacred Barak might be out to abolish, Walker writes. Even if Obama becomes president, our country is in such ruin it may be beyond his power to lead us into rehabilitation, end quote. Such a sentiment is basically calling for the abolition of our constitutional system of government and its replacement with something more socialistic or communistic in nature, administered in this case by the Obama. Pesky things like free speech and the right to worship as you see fit, especially if you do so in a traditional manner where you look to God as the source of your rights rather than government, causing too much divisiveness? Why not just abolish them with an executive order, as even supposedly solid conservative Republicans such as Ronald Reagan and G.W. Bush showed us there is really no reason why we should bother with the hassle of the lawmaking process when implementing measures no American in their right mind would back. And you as an American had better not have any expectations of fighting back. The Second Amendment will have been done away with long before that, with government stormtroopers sent house to house to confiscate firearms, as transpired in Louisiana following Katrina, to citizens that had committed no crimes. Walker continues on in an even more frightening tone. If he is elected, however, we must, as citizens of the planet, insist on helping him do the best job that can be done. More, we must insist that he demand this of us, end quote. For starters, the phrase, citizens of the planet, should tip the astute reader off right there that Barack's followers are a bunch of borderline communists. Such a phrase is an indication that the loyalty the person is invoking is not to the United States of America or even the God of the Bible, but rather to the enemies of human liberty, as those rallying under the banner of the planet are not going to distinguish themselves from the Red Chinese, Russian neo-Soviets, or radical Islamists. Secondly, I don't care who the president is. I don't want him making any kinds of demands of me. Just how far will this compulsory national service extend? The Founding Fathers did not set up a system where the national government was to have extensive interference in the life of the average citizen. These kinds of attitudes might be easy to dismiss if merely the ramblings of some fruitcake author having stumbled beyond the boundaries of their particular area of expertise. However, they are increasingly being echoed by more political insiders than even the candidate himself. Pundit Chris Matthews has implied that anyone not voting for Barack Obama is no better than Archie Bunker. Former Governor of Virginia Douglas Wilder has insinuated that if Obama is not the nominee, that there may be riots in the streets. In some of his comments, the Obama has attempted to convince the masses that he has distanced himself from Jeremiah Wright, with whom he has had considerable admiration for over 20 years. However, other oracles uttered by the Chosen One reveal that his outlook may not differ all that appreciably from his spiritual mentor. In comments regarding small-town America, meaning largely rural white people, Obama has said, quote, "You go into these small towns in Pennsylvania, and like a lot of small towns in the Midwest, the jobs have been gone for 25 years now, and nothing has replaced them. And it's not surprising then they get bitter. They cling to guns or religion or antipathy to people who aren't like them, or anti-immigrant status, or anti-immigrant sentiment, or anti-trade sentiment as a way to explain their frustrations. For starters, what's so wrong with clinging to guns or religion? By holding on to these metaphysical foundations, one is of the mindset that one is primarily responsible for one's own self and one's own family, as symbolized by the protection afforded by the gun, and those things one is unable to provide for oneself, one looks to God for, as symbolized by religion. If anything, Obama's urban supporters, not those living in America's rural and small-town heartland, are frankly the ones that have proven themselves unable of handling the responsibility of firearms ownership. Thus, it is reliance on